Alright, so we're done with the pool foundation, we're done with the pool walls, and we're done with the pool steps. Next up, we have all the things we're gonna mount on the pool walls. First up, we have the skimmer. A skimmer filters the water from all the rough parts, such as leaves and toys and things like that. It is installed at the pool surface, so all the excess water in the pool goes into the skimmer, are roughly filtered and then moved away to the pump. Now this type of inlet is called an eyeball inlet. As you can see, I can move around this eye-shaped ball, so I can aim where I want the water to go. And next up we have the LED lights. I'm gonna use 2 for this pool. Okay, so this wall is on the opposite side of the wall that has the pool steps on it. This is where I want to install my pool skimmer. Normally this part goes in level with the pool deck if you want to access it from the pool deck. Now in my case, I want it to be below the wood deck, and then have a custom hatch to access the skimmer. Now the top of the pool is below the wood deck, which means that this should be installed about here. As you can see here, when I did install this plank, I had literally no gap at all here. But as time has gone by and the planks has begun to dry, because it was really wet when I got them, they have begun to shrink. And the more they shrink, the more warping and twisting they will do. By adding some steel strips on the back like this, that should keep these planks from warping and twisting. And as I did on the corners, I will now stretch this metal band so it gets really tight. And I do that by screwing the screw at an angle down. There we go. When I cut this part over here, I noticed that the boards were splitting apart a little bit, and I do not want that. So I will go on the back now, off camera, and replace this with just a longer piece that goes from here to over there. Okay, so the problem is fixed. When this is installed like this, I need it to be flush with the wall. It looks like shit, but it will do. Before I attach this skimmer for real, there's one more thing that I need to do, and that is to add a piece of pipe right down here, like that. And unless the pipe is added, there is a risk of this breaking loose like that. So, very important. And this is the skimmer fully installed, and as you can see, it is going out a little bit from the wall, about 1-2 millimeters. And that is just to ensure that the liner is in full contact with the skimmer, so there will be no leakage. The skimmer is now installed, and let's move on to the inlets. These inlets need to be on the opposite side of the pool that the skimmer are. The skimmer is way over there, so this is where they need to be. They should be positioned about 200 to 300 millimeters below the water level. And from that edge to over here, we can have it about 120, 130 centimeters, something like that. This is my second step, and I want my inlet to be above that one, so I can aim it on this step to clean it. So one jet will be going on this direction, and on the other side it will be going on that direction. That way I will get a rotation of the water in the pool. I'm now gonna go from the back and add this plastic nut. I used a bit too big of a drill bit, so to center it I used wood chips like this, just squeezed in between the inlet and the hole, and eventually the pipe got quite stuck and centered as well. And all I have to do now is just tighten the nut. Okay, so now we know where to put the lamps. Now there is one more thing I forgot to do, and I was lucky that I caught it before actually cutting the hole. I need to put metal strips on the back of this wall so that these planks will not shift or move around. And to know exactly where this strip should be on the back, I will continue drilling a hole over here and here. One more thing when installing pool lamps such as these, make sure they're facing away from your house so you don't get any irritating light shining in during the evening and night. Okay, so my next step is to smoothen out these walls and the stairs as much as I can. On some plank joints like this one, you can see they are uneven, so flatten this out with a sander will make it less appearing when I put the liner on it. Okay, so I'm done sanding now. My glasses are, not as transparent as they used to be. The next step I have to do is to fill in all these large cracks I have, and I'm gonna use bathroom silicone to do that. The reason why I use silicone is that it is water resistant, well, waterproof even, and it's also flexible, so when the wood is moving due to heat and moisture and all that, the silicone will not crack and create debris that might be pushed inside the liner and create problems like that. So the silicone is the best solution I came up with. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it should not extrude all that much from the wall. Hey, if you like my video, I would appreciate it a lot if you took the time to hit that like button. 3.5 tubes later, and I'm all done. This is how it turned out. Quite good if you ask me. As you can see, I have not filled all the voids, just the major ones. It doesn't really need to be well made. You can see on this one, it's quite rough, it's not completely flat, but that's okay. It won't be visible when the liner is in place. I'm gonna buy my liner pre-made in a factory from my pool specifications. And those liners are always made a little bit too small, which means in these corners there will be a small radius. So all these gaps here, you don't have to think about them at all. Alright, so next up we're gonna install these liner lists. They look like this. Very important thing to do is to use stainless steel screws like these ones. They should have a flat underside and be as flat as possible on the top. Now first of all we're gonna take this one and put it all the way into the corner like that. Take another list and force it like that. And then we can pull this one back again. And now we have the position of the first list. Now we're just gonna add screws with about 150 millimeters apart. So the list for the liner is in place, and the next step would be to fix up this floor because everything else is done in the pool right now. So my initial plan was to put sand in the bottom and then compact it and then put liner on the sand. I have decided to not do that because it's simply just a little bit too much work for me. All I need to do is flatten out the gravel and put the insulation down, and then I can just put the liner on that. Having sand on the bottom was actually quite a good idea because the heat from the ground would heat up the pool during the winter and most definitely preventing it from ever freezing. This was a little bit of a concern for me because I live in northern Sweden. However, I don't think it will freeze over because I have a decently deep pool and it's insulated from the sides and it's in the ground. And everybody else I've asked about this that lives in this area said it's okay to do it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Right, so this looks pretty good. The entire floor is now covered with XPS 300 insulation foam. So next up we're gonna put some insulation on the pool. Now because there are steps here, I don't need to go all the way down. The steps end about here and so on. Yeah. Alright, so that's good enough. I'm only gonna use a nail to fasten this. Something like that. The nails are only there to hold it in place until I refill everything from the outside. There we go. That will be good enough, but because there is an inlet here, I need to do a small cutout for it. Now to know where to cut, I just hold against the inlet and just... That will leave me a mark to cut after. Perfect. Alright, so that's how you do it. Now I just do the same thing all around the pool. And there you have it. The entire pool is now insulated. It is time to begin with the plumbing to the pool. You see this inlet over here? Remember the plastic nut I used? I'm not supposed to use that plastic nut on the outside of the wall when I have really thick walls. This big plastic nut is only meant for really thin walls. So what I need to do is simply just to remove the plastic nut and add my plumbing fittings. To get a good tight seal, I will use some sealing tape. When using sealing tape, you always want to wrap it around clockwise and add about 3 to 5 layers. I'm gonna wrap 5 layers because this is kind of coarse thread. Now, what can happen if you add too many layers is that you can crack the female connector. I added 5 layers on the outside of the tabs, and on the further inside I added 4 layers because some of them were overlapping with the outside layers. Alright, so the time had come to install the PEM into the house. I have already cut up the insulation, so now it's just drilling the holes in the wall. And to do that, I will use this bad boy. Oh yeah. There we go. Through the wood and everything, I think. The PEM house is coming out from this connection. To remove all stress on the skimmer, I add this support bracket down here that I can put the PEM house through. Furthermore, it will release all stress when I do the 90-degree turn around the corner. This holder has multiple functions. First of all, it sets the height of this hose so that it's always flowing downwards. Next up, it's restraining the hose from coming out from the wall because of this bend here. As you can understand, this bend has quite a lot of force on it, so it wants to be forced out from the wall, but this keeps it inside the wall, and that removes strains on the skimmer. Further down, we have added a few planks. That is just to keep this at a constant downward angle all the way until it goes into the house. Now the idea behind this one is to split the water, so the water flows into the inlet over there and onto the inlet on the other side. So next up, I'm gonna put a hose in this coupling over here, and at the end of the hose I'm gonna put an end cap for my water slide I'm gonna do later on. I noticed that it was quite easy to turn it in. So I'm gonna put like 2 or maybe 3 more laps on this one, just to make sure it stays sealed up properly. Now remember, this is plastic, so no extreme forces. Just until you feel a slight resistance. Alright, so everything has now been connected. We have the lamps, we have the inlet, and we have the skimmer, and we have also connected everything to each other. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to put support beams across the pool, like that. The role of the support beams is to support the pool while I fill up around the pool. If I don't do that, the pool will get an hourglass shape if you look from a bird view. Okay, so all the beams have now been attached on one side. Next up is this side. The difference with this side is that between this pole and that pole, it needs to be an exact distance, so all the sides are straight and doesn't bow in or out. This side of the pool is fairly secure, it won't budge much, and that's because of the pool steps I have here. What I do have to worry about, however, is this wall over here. Now the way I was thinking about securing this wall is adding a beam from this pole to this pole, and from that one and to that one. The next step is to start filling up around the pool, but before we can do that, we need to fill in all these voids over here so we can go with a wheelbarrow all around the pool. But I am gonna leave connections like this totally open in the air, so after I have filled the pool I can check the connections so there are no leakage or anything like that, and when I do know that nothing is leaking I will cover this up. Even though the distance between each side is the same, it might have this curved shape. Now to counter that, you fill at the point where the curve is going up like that, right? My pool had a little bow shape like this in it. To fix that, I added masses here, so the side became very straight. Skimmer, inlets, lamps, plumbings, and pipes, and finally insulation. All done. In my next video I'm gonna show you how to install the liner. Don't miss it.